Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. Jadon Sancho, would you bring him back to Manchester United? If anybody hasn't seen the game against PSG last night in the Champions League semi-final, first of all, what were you doing with your Wednesday night? And second of all, you have to go and watch it. Jadon Sancho, I turned on the TV, I put it on and I was there, I was sat to watch Jadon Sancho. No matter what anybody thinks about him, he's one of our players. He could return to Manchester United in the summer. Also, we could be selling him as well. I wanted to see how he would perform. I also was supporting Dortmund as well because I always like the underdogs and I would prefer them to go through to PSG. Watched the game, just absolutely blown away by Jadon Sancho's performance. And I know what people say, it's only one performance, but we got a glimpse back into the past of when Jadon Sancho was absolutely killing it across, I mean, everybody was speaking about him, and that's why Manchester United went and bought him. We'll talk about that in a second. Going to talk about whether we'd bring him back, what Ten Hag has to do with this, what the management of Manchester United has to do with this. Also, a deeper look into the club as to why promising talents, when we buy them into Manchester United, they keep failing. And also, Marcus Rashford is committing himself to Manchester United and does not want to leave, despite the fact that Ineos have said that there is a price tag. Going to be talking about that in a second as well. And whether that is the right thing to do and whether the club really have any say over this anyway. Marcus Rashford does seem to hold all the cards. Is there a way back for Marcus Rashford? I mean, is it a similar situation to the Jadon Sancho situation? I mean, what other players are being held back by Manchester United? Is Marcus Rashford another one? We'll talk about that. But get in the comments straight away. Going to run a poll straight away. Would you bring Jadon Sancho back to Manchester United? The thumbnail is a question to you guys. This is a community. We've always been a community. There's people in the chat that will say absolutely not. There's people in the chat that will say absolutely yes. I spoke to Mark this morning. Mark is still on the no, Sancho should go, and he's got strong feelings for that. I've always been in the camp there. Back the manager, Jadon Sancho, I think he should leave in the summer. But honestly, after watching him play for Borussia Dortmund and just re-evaluating a few things, it's never a bad thing to change your mind. I'm not saying bring Sancho back, that's not what I'm saying, but I think there should be a conversation about it, and I think we should look at both sides of the conversation. I don't think it should just be a simple black or white answer. The last thing I want is Jadon Sancho going somewhere else and absolutely killing it, and we've missed out on that opportunity when we originally had bought him for 70 million. So I think it's like Sir Jim with Ineos at the moment, patience. We need to think about these decisions, we need to think them through. Jadon Sancho said himself to CBS Sports Galazzo, by the way, the coverage last night there was so good. He said, I really don't know, I'm just focused on the present right now. Nobody knows Jadon Sancho's future. The thoughts are, if Ten Hag stays, Sancho will have to go. If there is a change of manager, I absolutely think Jadon Sancho would come back with a clean slate. What do you guys want? What do you guys think? I'm going to go through some of the for and against as well. Get voting in the poll. A lot of people in the chat immediately, some are saying this proves that Ten Hag didn't know what he was doing. Immediately there's people saying no, he was lazy and he refused to play for 3 months. I'm going to start getting into all of them rumours, debunk a few and also talk about it as well. So what I did before the show today is I wrote out a list for bringing Jadon Sancho back to Manchester United and also a list against bringing Jadon Sancho back to United, because like I said, I don't think it's as simple as black and white. I think there was wrongdoings on Sancho's part, but I also think he was handled poorly by Manchester United as well. So I think you need to take into consideration the full picture. Bear in mind, how old is Jadon Sancho? 23 years old. He's still a young player, you know, mistakes can be made. Going to go through the fors and I'm going to go through the against as well. So first and foremost, I've got on my for Jadon Sancho list that I've come up with, and it is, why is it that most big players that have come to Manchester United have failed, but then when they get sold to another club, they seem to do well? Or they do well before they come to Manchester United, and then they come to Manchester United and they fail. We have a track history of ruining players' careers and failing talents. I mean, I could list off so many. Donny van de Beek was an example. I mean, he's not really done well when he's gone elsewhere, but he was so promising before he came to Manchester United, and we absolutely killed his career off. Jadon Sancho was one of the most promising talents in Europe before he came to Manchester United. And then when he came to Manchester United, people saying, oh, we just can't hack the Premier League, he's not good enough. He's gone back to Dortmund, and he's absolutely ripping PSG up in a semi-final of the Champions League. I mean, there's so many players that you can say it for that they come to Manchester United with so much expectation, and then they never ever live up to it. And if anything, the careers get killed off. I mean, the only player that springs to mind that is come to Manchester United with quite a bit of hype around him and has lived up to their expectation, in my opinion, was Bruno Fernandes. That's like the only one I can really think about in the last God knows how many years. So Manchester United have a track history of bringing talent in and ruining it. And I'm not saying that Manchester United should be solely to blame. I think players have to hold themselves accountable. Remember, Manchester United is the biggest club in England. It's one of the biggest clubs in the world, up there with one of the biggest clubs in the world. There's a lot of pressure coming to Manchester United, and the players, sometimes, they're not mentally strong enough to wear that Manchester United shirt. But ultimately, Manchester United have a track record of signing players, bringing them in, having no plan for them, taking them on no journey, giving them little support, and it ends up in us probably selling players for underprice and not getting the best out of them. Like, look at Jadon Sancho. We didn't even know that his preferred position was on the left until we'd signed him. We bought him to be a right winger. I mean, how much planning went into that one? And then he gets here, he's a technical footballer that likes to play in the half spaces, likes to play in a possession-based team, constant movement, and we try and play him in a team that can't even string 5 passes together. It just wouldn't work. There's so many different types of profiles, and we just didn't have a plan for Jadon Sancho. We didn't have a journey to take him on. He's a young talent. He's not as if he was 26, 27 coming in established. He was a young talent that needed to be nurtured, and I feel like Manchester United didn't do that really. And I'm not blaming Ten Hag for that. It's when he first came under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I don't think there was ever really a plan for Jadon Sancho, and that's where it started off wrong, because we started off on the wrong foot because there was no plan for him, and it was obviously then hard for him to gain momentum. Then I wanted to say, I also think it's about the environment as well. I feel like at Manchester United, there's a sense of comfortability. There's been little to no discipline for a long time in that football club. I know Ten Hag is trying to instill it. Whether he's doing that in the right way is up for you guys to debate in the chat. But at Borussia Dortmund, I feel like there's a structure there. There's a structure to that club. At Manchester United, there's not a structure. I feel like there's a lot of comfortability. I feel like it is a little bit of a toxic environment. I feel like there is little discipline in that football club, and a lot of times players and agents are allowed to run riot at Manchester United, and that needs to be stomped out as well. Jadon Sancho has gone to Borussia Dortmund, and for me, looks like the leanest I've ever seen him. Looks very, very sharp. How is that turnaround happened so quickly? Is it because it's a coach that believes in him? Is it because the structure's a lot better? Is it because there's better investment in Borussia Dortmund into the individual player? I mean, there's a lot of questions to be asked, but it looks really bad on Manchester United that we bought Jadon Sancho for 70 million. We couldn't get a tune out of him. He goes back to Borussia Dortmund on loan after we've paid them, and they've got him back to how he was playing when we first originally wanted to sign him, because that's the Jadon Sancho I saw last night. I know he's not been that since he walked into Borussia Dortmund. It took him a lot of time to get up to match fitness, and obviously he hadn't played for a while and, you know, had to get his confidence up. But that Jadon Sancho last night in a Champions League semi-final is the Jadon Sancho of why we bought him. Why is Dortmund able to get that out of him, but we're not? That's the question I ask you guys. Why can we not do that? And I think club structure is a massive, massive part of that. It's a massive part of that. And plus, ultimately, they have players that play for each other and play together and are a cohesive team. Manchester United, I feel like, don't have that at the moment. Got some super chats in as well. Tom Edwards said, Zlatan summed it up best. Ten Hag cannot manage big name players. Only young talent he can mould. He has an ego problem. Sancho only returns if Erik Ten Hag goes. Tiddy Brown says, was sold by City because his attitude was wrong, released from the England camp due to some reasons, and now at United. Kid's a prima donna, get rid. Like I said, I have got other points that I'm going to bring in that kind of bring in that super chat as well. Patrick Lynch says, Sir Jim said himself, the environment around the club is not conducive for anyone to succeed, players or managers. Brilliant super chat there from Patrick, and he did say that at the moment, the environment at Manchester United, it's an environment that breeds failure. And I hate to say that about my own club because I love Manchester United, but Manchester United as a club is an environment that breeds failure. We are a failing institution, not just because we failed Jadon Sancho. We failed many players. We're failing as a football club. We're failing on the pitch. We're failing as a team. It breeds failure. And the environment needs to change. Ray Cal Brown Amory says, not for me, it's a black and white answer, which is no. He turned his back on us by striking, and for the 30 months we had him, the one good game in 3 years should not blind you. Nick P says, can I just say, no one's actually explained why Sancho was out for so long. How can we sit here and judge anything? Mark seems intent he has to go. Well, he was out for a while with Manchester United for the first time because obviously the issues he had off the pitch mentally, which I completely understand, and Ten Hag did give him time to address that. And then the second time, he was out because he wouldn't apologise to Erik Ten Hag. Some would say if Jadon Sancho had apologised to Erik Ten Hag, he'd be getting 10, 20-minute cameos off the bench against Burnley and Coventry. Now he's playing in a Champions League semi-final against PSG from the start, really important player, ripping it up, going out there, getting man of the matches. I mean, what was the right thing to do for his career? Obviously, by the way, I do think he should have apologised, even if he didn't feel like he had to. He should have apologised. I don't think he ever should have put that statement out. I'm going to get onto that in a second. I do think, despite the fact whether Sancho in his head probably thought, why on earth am I not playing over the likes of some of these other players? Because I know my own talent and I believe in myself. Why am I not doing that? Why am I not getting a chance? Why, after being the best player in pre-season and putting in all the hard graft in pre-season, am I now, not getting a look in once the season has started? Why am I seeing players stink it up on the pitch and I'm still not getting a look in? And he probably got really frustrated with that. And I can understand that side of things. But you still don't write a statement out against the manager, even if it was in the heat of the moment. And you still, after doing that, realise, OK, no matter what I think, Ten Hag is a manager. I want to play for this football club. I want to play for Manchester United, and you do apologise. I think he should have. But realistically, the reason why I don't think he did, and the reason why I think it happened, is I think it comes down to the fact Sancho obviously saw multiple players getting opportunities time after time after time for Manchester United, and he wasn't getting a look in when he knew his own ability and just feel like he needed to play. And obviously no player can demand that they play at Manchester United. Absolutely not. But he's showing now why he should have been being picked, why he should have been getting minutes. And people can say, well, he didn't show it for 3 years. There might be reasons for that. Reasons being, is he suited to the style of the Premier League? Is he suited to Manchester United's style of play? Is it the players around him? Is it the fact that there was never really any confidence and belief put in him? Was he ever played for 90 minutes, 3 games in a row? Or was he always the first sub when he started games? Was he always in and out of the team? These things do have an impact on players. Got some more super chats in. Rory C says, Sancho has still created the second most chances for United in the last 3 seasons after Bruno. Says more about the other players, I guess. Yeah, we talked about that on the show the other day. And Baitface Rye says, we sent him away to deal with his mental health. He came back and went at the person that supported him. It's time to move on from Sancho now. Not Vindicator says, Sancho has no respect for United or the fans. The way he speaks of Dortmund, I could never root for him again. And Jack McIntyre says, man, come on, he dissed all over the club. Nope. And Raya Mogal says, never mind apologising to Erik Ten Hag. Sancho couldn't meet the club halfway by showing up to training on time. The last thing a rebuilding team needs is another player whose attitude stinks up the team. Rashford already does that. Wow. A lot of strong thoughts going in on the chat right now. And I've got loads more to get into to kind of back up both sides of the argument. So I'm going to continue with that as well. Would you bring Jadon Sancho back? Vote in the chat. Currently, it is... I can't see the poll, so if the producer could tell me the poll in my ear, that would be brilliant. Thank you very much. So... it is 72% say no, don't bring it back. Well, it's a very strong opinion in the United Stand community. I also put the same poll on our Instagram, And I think it was like 60-40, 60 no. So I think the majority of the fan base is still leaning towards no. But I think also a few people are starting to open their eyes and think, can we just keep blaming the players, or do we have to look at the club as well? And that's where I'm at. I've always said no, 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 no. But despite the fact I do think Jadon Sancho has done wrong, and I do think there is issues there in terms of attitude, I do, you have to put some blame onto the club. And I'm gonna talk about that in a second. So, Jadon Sancho, just yesterday, for example, 48 games he played for Manchester United, and he dribbled past a player 7 times in them 48 games. He did that in the first 10 minutes against PSG in a Champions League semi-final. And I'm not talking about, you know, a team in Germany, I don't even know the name, in the Bundesliga. I'm talking about Paris Saint-Germain in a Champions League semi-final. He's already gone over his tally of games for Manchester United of dribbling past players. Like, doesn't that just say everything? And I think a big part of that is confidence and belief. I said, like, the player that Ricky will say all day, he was good at United, Beth, he was good at United. He was not the player that I seen last night. At Man United, he passed backwards a lot, didn't really seem to show much confidence, didn't really seem to show much flair. Yet, he's showing that all over the pitch at Borussia Dortmund. And I think confidence, belief is a big part of that. And also, I'd seen this that I wanted to bring up into the show. Sancho is better at Dortmund because the average IQ of their team is so much better than ours. He's playing with players on his wavelength who are actually moving. Sancho was criticised for not taking on defenders at Manchester United in a team that can't even string 5 passes together. Put him in a decent team and all of a sudden he's skipping past players like they're not there in a Champions League semi-final versus PSG. This Manchester United team got played out of the park by Copenhagen. And I feel like that's a really interesting point because we know that Manchester United have played really poorly for the majority of the season. We've got results, but can you name more than 3 games where we've put a really decent performance together? No. Our style of play has been in the gutter. And it's interesting when you watch Borussia Dortmund, their IQ is high. The players do all seem to be on the same wavelength. The forward players, the constant movement. Their striker, I feel like, is brilliant at linking everything up as well. They just look like a well-oiled machine compared to Manchester United. That, I think, is another big reason why Jadon Sancho seems to be thriving over there, as well as confidence and belief. And the next point I wanted to bring on is the different profiles of players we have in the Manchester United team. Manchester United, and this is why I feel like we need to start from scratch and have a massive clear out, and we need to identify what style of football we want to play going forward, who suits that style of football and who doesn't. Because at Manchester United, you've got a mishmash of players, some who I think are good enough for the future and some who I think are way off it, a mishmash of quality and a mishmash of profiles. You've got certain players that are suited to counter-attacking football only. You've got certain players that can probably do a little bit of both. You've got certain players that are more suited to possession-style football, and you've got certain players where, honestly, I feel like they'd be suited to championship football. So you've got multiple different profiles of players. And this is why I said when we initially bought Sancho, what was the plan for him? Because Sancho is a player where if you utilise him in a possession-based system, you utilise him in the half spaces and you give him runners, you give him overlapping fullbacks, which Manchester United need to get better at for sure. You give him overlapping fullbacks, you give him underlapping runners, you give him players around him that are creating movement. He is going to thrive. Højlund could have done with somebody playing like Sancho did last night. But Manchester United don't have constant overload of overlapping fullbacks. We don't have constant movement in the box. We don't play well. We don't play well. And when you've got Jadon Sancho getting the ball for Manchester United and he's waiting 5 minutes for a runner to come past him, you're waiting for movement in the box. That massively holds back his style of football. He's somebody who moves the ball quickly, sees the intelligent runs, and sees the little intricate passes. That's the creative winger that he is. And at Manchester United, we didn't see that from him. We saw bits, very rare bits. Like we saw that game against Liverpool where at home, which is like one of the only standout games I can remember from Jadon Sancho. And we've seen little bits, but realistically, I think he's somebody that thrives in a team that is flourishing. And Manchester United are a failing team and we're not playing good football. So if throwing Jadon Sancho, if you brought Jadon Sancho back from Dortmund now, literally now, and played him for Man United at the weekend, I don't think you'd get anything near that performance because I think the team is so different and we just don't play a style of football that suits him whatsoever. Is that style of football going to continue at Manchester United? I mean, I hope not, because I don't like watching it. I'm trying to write this season off and hoping things will get better next season and we'll see an improved style of play. Is that style of play going to suit Jadon Sancho? And would he fit into our team? That's another question that you've got to ask. Exactly, we don't play a style of football, which is what Told You says in the chat. And that's what I mean, like, for Jadon Sancho, who is, like, the environment is one thing. I think Manchester United has been ill-disciplined for a long time. I said on the show the other day, there's a comfortability. I've spoke to people who are in Manchester United who said they can't believe that that's the standards for a club like Manchester United. It feels like it's too comfortable. I think the environment is not good, but I also think at the same time, like, we don't play well, and that massively holds back on elements of not just Jadon Sancho's game, but other people's game as well. You need to maximise his skill set. He likes playing the tight spaces. He likes to see the intelligent runs, and Man United players are not well drilled on making their intelligent runs. We're not well drilled on moving the football quickly. We have so many players that either take too long on the ball, hoof it, and it goes to nobody, or, you know, we have players that just dribble into defenders and don't pass it off when they should do. It just feels like it's free reign, and there's just no kind of structure to Manchester United at all. You don't see little give and goes. You don't see quick movement in passing. You see, and I like players to be able to express themselves, but so often you just see running into players, running down blind alleys. You see fullbacks not making the correct runs at the right time. Dallow's got a lot better at it, but, you know, Wan-Bissaka's not great at it. You know, we've missed Luke Shaw. It's not working at Manchester United in terms of team play at the moment, and it's hard for, I feel like, any talent to like come in and properly thrive. Obviously, you have the likes of Kobbie Mainoo, who's done brilliantly. Alejandro Garnacho. I feel like it makes me think, like, what could the likes of Alejandro Garnacho be doing in a team that was like thriving, that was, you know, playing good football? Like, it makes me think what other players are being held back. Like, and I'm not just blaming the manager. I feel like this has been the culture for years. I'm not just solely putting it on Erik Ten Hag. I feel like this has been the culture for a long time, but also Erik Ten Hag is responsible for the way we've played football this season, and it hasn't been positive football that has been able to get the fans off the seats and players have been able to thrive in. So it's an interesting topic to debate anyway. Got some more super chats in. Fabian Cameron says, Sancho is better than our current wingers. Fact. Well, that's another thing. Sancho was seeing other players play ahead of him, constantly get more minutes ahead of him, and he was probably sat there fuming, thinking, I'm better than these. And that probably was aggravating to him. William Ferguson says, it's off the field antics that made my mind up, get rid. Ricky Moreno says, hi Beth, we might be able to make a profit out of Sancho, which hasn't happened for a while with our transfer record. We definitely won't be able to make a profit. We're not getting more than 70 million for him with the wages he's on. But his performances for Dortmund are a good thing, because it means if we do sell him, and that's a question I ask you guys, if we do sell him, we're just upping the amount of money that we're going to be able to get for him. Nigel Flynn says, hi Beth, he did play well, however PSG didn't see him as a threat. PSG won't make the same mistake twice. I do think he should go. Mariaki with a super chat in as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm not blinded by one good performance. Like I said, he wasn't that player at Manchester United, And he hasn't been that player at Dortmund since he came there. It's took him a while to get back into his groove. Like, he hasn't played like that the whole time he's been at Dortmund. It has took him a while to get back into his groove. Probably match fitness, probably getting used to playing. And a lot of people say playing for Dortmund is different to playing for Manchester United. And granted, I do agree with that. But for me, with Sancho, I've never thought he was a bad player. Never. I think he's got talent. I think he's got talent in abundance. I've always said the shirt of Manchester United weighs heavy. I think the mental side weighs heavy. And I also think having confidence and belief from your manager is massive in both of them elements. And that's what he's getting at the moment. So this is what I wanted to talk about, confidence and belief. I watched the analysis on CBS with Thierry Henry, and I always like to, don't always agree with them, but I like to look at what ex-players are saying because they've been in situations like this. Don't always agree with what ex-players say, but it's good to get somebody who's been in that situation. And Thierry Henry said, don't underestimate the mental side. And this is something I've always said. In sports, top elite level sports, mentality is absolutely huge. I've told the story a million times before, but mentality is massive. They did an experiment on this in American basketball, like elite teams, and I can't remember what teams it was, but they did a training session before a game, and one team was told to practice shooting, practice, getting the ball, shooting the ball in the net. I don't know the correct basketball terms. And the other team was told to just mentally envision themselves scoring, playing well, and getting the ball in the net, for example. And the team that did the mental work rather than physically doing it with a team that performed better. And like I said, not everything's black and white, but mentality is so important. Look at Cristiano Ronaldo, someone who is obviously putting a lot of work and he's very naturally talented, but his mentality takes him the league above everybody else. Mentality is absolutely huge. It's a huge thing. And it comes from different areas. It comes from belief in yourself. It comes through being a hard worker, having that mental grit, being able to dig in, but it also can be instilled in you through the people you have around you. Have you got the right team around you? Have you got the right friends around you? Is your manager getting the best out of you? And these are all elements that come down to confidence and belief. So, when I'm talking about confidence and belief, I think with Sancho, he's getting that confidence and belief now at Borussia Dortmund. It's a comfortable environment for him. He was there from when he was young. He was allowed to develop there. And he has been brought back there and he's got absolute belief and confidence from his manager. The manager had rested him because he wanted him available for the big games, the big Champions League games. The manager really rates Jadon Sancho and he's been working with him very closely in training. The manager spoke out on this himself. I spoke about this on a show yesterday. With Jadon Sancho at Manchester United, did he have the confidence and belief from Ten Hag? No, he didn't. Ten Hag went and bought Antony in his position, which then probably Jadon Sancho thought, that's not a great start. He's gone and bought a winger in a place that I'm going to be playing. Then he isn't used really as a first teamer. Then when he does get his chances from the start, he's the first one to get subbed off. Doesn't really get more than a few games in a row. Whereas at Dortmund, he's being played and played and played, and the confidence and the belief is in him. And also, when you see yourself being benched by players who are not, you don't think are as good as you, and not even not as good as you, but are underperforming, and you're still not really getting given the opportunity, that must be frustrating. Also, Jadon Sancho was our best player in pre-season. Our best player in pre-season. And then when it got to the season, he didn't get a look in. And that must be frustrating for him. So I think confidence and belief is a huge thing. I also think, no disrespect to Dortmund, but they're not even the biggest team in Germany. Bayern Munich are. Bayern Munich are the ones who are expected to win everything in Germany. They're expected to progress in the Champions League. Dortmund, obviously, they're a good side. They're playing much better than Manchester United right now. They're a very good side, but the pressure is nowhere near as big as what it is at Manchester United. The Manchester United shirt does weigh heavy, whether people like it or not. We're the biggest club in England. We're one of the biggest clubs in the world. So that's something that is going to be a contributing factor. And not all players are going to be able to handle that. It's a lot more of a comfortable environment for Jadon Sancho at Borussia Dortmund. Then I wanted to... A lot of people in the chat are asking me what players have succeeded away from Manchester United. And I do have a list here. And, for example, Matteo Darmian got ridiculed a lot in Manchester United, won 2 league titles, 2 Coppa Italias, and reached the Champions League final with Inter Milan. Mkhitaryan has been a player reborn in Italy. Smalling, obviously, was a complete bargain for Roma at €3 million. But, I mean, Smalling, I still don't think he's not good enough to play for Manchester United, in my opinion, still. And people will ridicule this, but Lukaku, 14 goals per season every year and twice scored over 30 since he left Manchester United. Anthony Elanga done a lot better in Nottingham Forest than what he did in Manchester United, and obviously Jadon Sancho doing very well at Dortmund. And the only thing I would bring into this, which I think is obviously an argument from the other side, nobody's really done well at a top team. Top team. I mean, Inter Milan, Champions League final, so, I mean, that's a team that's done really well. Jadon Sancho, Champions League semi-final, that's more than what Manchester United have been reaching for a number of years. So people will laugh at these teams. People will say, it's only Serie A. People say, it's the Bundesliga, it's only Serie A. And I've been guilty of being one of them people before. But what English teams are left in the Champions League? Man United didn't even get out of the group in the Champions League group. We're 6th, is it, in the Premier League? 6th in the Premier League. And yeah, the Premier League, I still do think it is the best league in the world, but we couldn't get out of the Champions League group. We got played off the park by Copenhagen. You know, Galatasaray turned up to Old Trafford and beat us 3-2. Like, Man United, I feel like people think that we're much better than what we are, and realistically, we are really poor at the moment. And a lot of these teams that people laugh at, yeah, well, it's only Serie A, it's only the Bundesliga, they're playing a lot better than what we are at the moment. And that's something that we kind of need to understand, I think. The poll so far for Jadon Sancho, would you bring him back, is still on 72% no and 28% say yes. So it is largely on the no side of things, and I can understand that as well. The one thing I would say is, what happens if Jadon Sancho comes back to Carrington in the summer with a Champions League medal? Like, what actually happens? Like, imagine if Jadon Sancho wins the Champions League. I mean, obviously there's a lot to do. They have to beat Paris in Paris. Then they have to beat whoever it is in the final. I don't think Dortmund will win the Champions League, but they've got a very good chance. And what happens if that? Like, does Jadon Sancho still get sold? Is it just money added to his price? Or do we have to understand we've bought a very seriously talented player for 70 million and we should try and make it work, considering he's still young? That's a question I ask for you. What happens if Jadon Sancho wins the Champions League and he's massively contributed to it? I mean, I'll be interested to hear what Ten Hag has to say in his press conference, because that's this afternoon and he's going to get asked about that. Anyway, on the I said that there was both sides of a coin. I wanted to do the for Jadon Sancho part. Now I'm going to talk about reasons why Manchester United should still sell him. Because, like I said, it's not black and white. I've reevaluated things. I was on the adamant on the no side. Yes, we should sell him. But now I'm open to the conversation of what would happen if we bring Jadon Sancho back. How could we get the best out of him? Because it would be a shame to let a really talented player go and be extremely talented elsewhere, and we've lost out on him. But these are the reasons why I think could be a reason for getting rid of Jadon Sancho. First of all, he's had things follow him a lot throughout his career. At Dortmund, I know he's been really successful now, but his first stint at Dortmund, there was instances where he'd been late to training and Dortmund had been frustrated at that, but they'd let it go because of how good his performances were on the pitch. England camp, there was reports coming out about issues about punctuality, about his training. So in the England camp, he didn't really thrive either. And obviously at Manchester United, punctuality was an issue with Jadon Sancho, not just when Ten Hag was there, but before that as well. But it kind of got covered up and swept under the rug before Ten Hag came and had an issue with it. punctuality is a big issue for Jadon Sancho, and at Manchester United you need professionals that are committed and that are setting the right examples to other younger players in the squad. So that's something that is a cross against Jadon Sancho and a reason as to why you would want to move him on. You don't want players that think that they can rule the roost. You don't want players that are not putting in 100% commitment in all areas of training. Being late to training isn't acceptable. Punctuality having bad punctuality isn't acceptable. So that's something that's followed Jadon Sancho not only at Manchester United but at previous points in his career as well. Also in the England team, he didn't really pull up any trees. I know Gareth Southgate's manager and he has his favourites, but Sancho didn't really thrive in the England team, even when he was doing super well for Dortmund. Sometimes you are a product of your environment, and does Jadon Sancho just massively, massively suit that Dortmund side? That's another question you have to bring up. For those who love stats, reborn Jadon Sancho has 3 goals and 2 assists since moving back to Dortmund in January, which incidentally is the exact same number of goals and assists since January for Anthony at Manchester United, who gets ridiculed a lot, and Anthony is playing in an underperforming Manchester United side. And for this, I know a lot of people love the goals and assists and the stats, and I do like to look at a stat myself. But the one thing I would say is stats are not the be-all and end-all. Jadon Sancho got no goals and no assists yesterday, but was still, for me, one of the best players on the pitch. Stats don't always tell the full story. Like, you can be playing incredibly well, but you don't score and you don't get an assist, and does that mean you've not had a good game? Like, for me, I think Jack Grealish is one of the best wingers, like best wide players in the Premier League, and I think he's crucially important to that City team. Any important game that City play, Jack Grealish will start if he's fit. Pep Guardiola, one of the best managers that's ever been. Jack Grealish will start. Is Jack Grealish a stats monster? Is Jack Grealish getting goals and assists every single game? No, but he's vital to the way City play, and he plays very good on the ball across 90 minutes. He gives you good defensive work. He carries the ball forward really well. He's a very good player. So it's not always about the stats. Sancho played top yesterday, but he didn't have a goal or assist. That doesn't mean he didn't play well. If you're only looking at the stats, then people might think he didn't play well. And on the same side of things, you know, there's been games where players might get a goal, or they might get an assist, but they'll play really poorly for 90 minutes, and people say they played really well because they got a goal and assist. You've got to do the eye test as well with a lot of players. Also, something I wanted to talk about is another reason why I should have gone is if Ten Hag is still manager, unless he apologises, which I don't see happening, that situation can't be allowed to manifest. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. He should have apologised, and he never should have put that statement out. You know, Thomas Tuchel comes out and calls Kim Min-jae greedy and slates him to the media, not a peep out of Kim Min-jae, and nothing said. Erik Ten Hag, all he said about Jadon Sancho was he didn't train to the standards of Manchester United, and Jadon Sancho put out a statement against the manager. That statement never should have come out, even if it was because he was really angry and his head was hot. The team around him shouldn't have let that go out. And then you've got to question the team around players as well. So that statement never should have gone out. And also, he should have apologised and just grin and bared it and fake smiled all the way through it. We've all apologised in life when we don't feel like we had to. I mean, I've done it to my parents numerous times when I was little. You know, when you're little and, like, you know, you're being punished for something or you're grounded, and you just apologise because you want to be ungrounded and you want to go out, but not because you feel like you did anything wrong. And you're like, yeah, I'm sorry for doing that, even though you feel like you didn't do it wrong, didn't do anything wrong. Sancho still should have apologised and shown some professionalism. That is my issue there. And you can't have someone in your squad where no matter who the manager is, you never know when they're going to fly off the handle. You never know when they're going to, you know, be late to training, when they're going to have an issue with the manager, and that can cause disruptances in the dressing room. So that's something that you have to take into account as well. And also, Pep Guardiola allowed Sancho to leave. Did he allow him to leave for a reason? There was issues with him at City in terms of punctuality, I think, as well. And they're things you've got to take into consideration. But, you know, Pep Guardiola also allowed Cole Palmer to leave, and Cole Palmer's absolutely ripping it to shreds. So not every manager gets everything right. So they're my for and against for Jadon Sancho. It was a long discussion on that, but I think a discussion has to be had. Like I said, I've spent 40 minutes talking about Jadon Sancho. I could go on for another 20 talking about him. But this is a situation where a decision is going to have to be made. Talent-wise, I think he's more than good enough to play. But it's about, can we provide the right environment for him? Can he make it up with the manager? Is there a second chance available for him? Can he change the attitude and the punctuality? They're all points that need to be talked about with Ineos, Sir Jim, the manager, and they need to come to a conclusion after weighing everything up, whether it is the right decision for Manchester United and for Jadon Sancho if he returns to Manchester United. Because, imagine Jadon Sancho wins the Champions League, we sell him for nowhere near what we paid for him, then we go and buy Michael Olise for 60 million, and Jadon Sancho ends up continuing to rip it up. You think, what was the point? So, you could save yourself 60 million if Jadon Sancho was able to regain form and able to be the player we thought he could be. But is he able to drop all the baggage? Is he able to wear the weight of a Manchester United shirt? Is he able to be a professional athlete and commit himself to Manchester United and respect the club? They're all questions that need to be asked and answered, and that's why it's good to have a discussion in the chat about this as well, a discussion with everyone. People talk about Andre Onana. Andre Onana was one of the best keepers in the world when he was playing for Inter Milan. Remember the Inter Milan final against City? Everyone was raving about him. My stepdad's a City fan, and he said to me, that's the keeper I'd be getting if I were you, Andre Onana, like quality. Came to me at Man United and instantly got ridiculed, and everyone said he was rubbish. Like, this is... like, Manchester United has a history for it. Obviously, Onana's come good now, and he's getting a lot more respect on his name. I've always thought he's a good keeper. It's just he did start shakily at Manchester United. He did start poorly. And it's like the environment of Manchester United is just not one that a lot of players have managed to thrive in. And fans and pundits will automatically just point straight to the player. Oh, they shouldn't have bought this player. The recruitment's bad. They're not good enough to be a Man United player. What about if the culture and the environment at Manchester United is not good enough to bring the best out of talented players? I mean, what other players in Manchester United are we not getting the best out of? And don't get me wrong, I still think there's a load of dead wood and rubbish in that dressing room as well, like in terms of players, not rubbish because that's disrespectful, but players that aren't good enough. But there'll be some gems in there that we've not been able to get the best out of because of the environment of the club. And like, the sooner Sir Jim changes that, the better. Can't wait for it to start happening. I have got a lot of positivity around Man United at the moment, and it's not because of what I've seen on the pitch. God, it's not because of that. That would send me into pure depression if it was just the Glazer ownership. But what's given me the positivity now around Man United is the fact that Sir Jim has called it out in interviews. He is making changes. He's getting an interim CEO before his CEO even comes in July, because they want their own people in. They want to change the culture. They want to change Manchester United. He said it's not a positive environment for anybody to succeed right now. And that is not going to happen overnight, but he started to put the changes in place, and I think that's super important. And I think Jadon Sancho embodies what has gone wrong with this football club. First of all, we paid him too much coming into the club in terms of wages. Second of all, we had no plan for him. We didn't nurture the talent. And third of all, we've just handled him very, very, very poorly. And fourth of all, the way that he fell out with the manager, one, should never have been public in the way it was, and two, it never should have happened the way it did. That environment should never have been allowed for a player to even think they could have spoke out about the manager like that. So it embodies a lot of what's wrong with this club, but I do think Jadon Sancho is a very, very talented football player. It's just whether it can work out in Manchester United, and that's the question I asked to you guys. But the community has spoken, and it is no 72% and yes 28%. So at the moment, you guys would still want to sell him, and that's up to you. That's up to you. That's the voice of the fans. I'm undecided, to be honest, because I've said why I'm undecided. I'm undecided. I need to move off this topic. Shayon Sunasinj says, why that though? What if he leaves United and plays better elsewhere? If he is ruining the dressing room, he must go. If that's the case, bring Greenwood. Brian H says, at 300 grand per week, it's not crazy to expect goals and assists from a forward winger. Attitude and effort is one of United's biggest issues. Sell him and move on. Duncania says, bring Sancho back just to make him train alone for 2 years, take the financial hit to watch his smugness disappear and ruin his career. Bitter. Me. SK says, the apology Eric Ten Hag wanted wasn't just for him, but it was for the club and the staff. And Rail Carl Brown Amory says, Sancho shows himself now because he has to perform, because this one game he comes back and puts in crap performances. What is the excuses then? Carlson Charles says, making excuses for someone who lacked discipline. Matic, he wants things to be handled and not... Matic, he wants to be handed things and not earn. Jadon lacked defensive work rate. He's more talented, but lacks discipline, and the others worked harder. That's the thing. Discipline isn't instilled at Manchester United. It has to be instilled. We've seen it through Rashford. Rashford doesn't track back. Rashford's gone out clubbing and clubbing this season. Discipline isn't instilled at Manchester United, or if it is, it's one rule for one and one rule for another. That's what the issues we're having at Manchester United. People say Sancho's not disciplined. Yeah, he wasn't at Manchester United, but because I don't think the environment. That's what I keep trying to say. The environment at Manchester United it's allowed players to run riot for a long time. There isn't a sense of discipline at Manchester United. We've been told Eric Ten Hag is trying to change that. But also, it doesn't make sense if you're going to discipline Sancho, but, you know, Rashford's had issues this season but continues to play and play and play. You know, there is favouritism at Manchester United, and Sancho, that is one of the things he did call out. He shouldn't have said it publicly, but you can see it from the outside looking in. And Mr. D says, the better he does, the more we get, so Sancho can go. Anthony Murray says Sancho and Rashford are finished at United. Ten Hag is king. And Shane Matthews says Sancho is playing well. So Sancho playing well is only good for us. He went on loan, a £30 million player. Now he's a 50, 60 million player. Thanks to Dortmund, his stock has risen. Red says, have you even checked out his output at Dortmund this season? Anthony's had a better return. Falling for one good performance is pathetic. Like I said, it's not always all about stats. It's about how you perform. But yeah, obviously you do want your wingers to provide you with output, but it's not all about your goals and assists. It's about how you're playing and how you're affecting the team. Fabian Cameron says, watch Neville's interview with Bastian and then you will get the mindset of Sancho. You play to the player's strengths, and we haven't done that. Exactly, we don't. We expose the weaknesses of players, if anything. But thank you, everyone, for your super chats. David Ruck says, I don't understand some fans. Sancho's talent was not in question. It is about his attitude. I don't care how he performs at Dortmund. And Skinner Golf says, Sancho is playing at right wing, but at United he was lazy, couldn't beat his man and only played left wing. He was a disgrace against City in the FA Cup final and couldn't care less about the United badge. Again, of course, the player has to take responsibility for that, and as a player you should always carry yourself with the most amount of professionalism, but the environment behind the scenes is big to do with that as well. Anyway, moving on to the last bit of the show. And funnily enough, it's about another winger, and this is coming out from Neil Custis at The Sun, and it is that Marcus Rashford will resist any attempt by Manchester United to sell him this summer. So Marcus Rashford wants to stay at Manchester United. That's the word that we've been hearing, not only from The Sun, but from multiple other sources as well. Manchester United is where Marcus Rashford wants to be. He wants to commit himself to the club. He wants to work on improving his form at Manchester United. And to that I would say, of course he does. Of course he does. Of course he does. I say this all the time. Players, there's not much better that they can go to the Manchester United. And you guys will say, you've just said there how Man United are really poor and there's so many better other clubs. And in terms of levels of football, yes. But I'm talking about who else is going to pay Marcus Rashford 350 grand a week for the performances that he's had this season. Nobody is. Nobody's going to do that. And starting week in, week out as well. And continue just to keep playing him and playing him and playing him. Even though he's playing poorly and earning 350 grand a week off the back of it. Of course he wants to stay at Manchester United. And what I would say about this is Rashford can regain the form. He can do that. The talent is there. We've all seen it. And again, product of your environment. The environment around Rashford, I don't think he's getting the best out of him. Personally, I think the way his PR is managed doesn't give him any favours whatsoever. But that's not even to do with the football. I'm talking about to do with the football. I think if Rashford's playing poorly, he should be taken out of the team, taken out of the limelight, have a couple games on the bench, get that hunger back in him. That's never happened with Rashford at Manchester United. There's so many different things behind the scenes that I think could have been handled better when it comes to Rashford. When Rashford, he had 2 incidents this season where he went clubbing and Ten Hag wasn't happy about it. The Belfast, obviously, the one sticks out the most. But obviously, after the Manchester City game when he was out, to be fair, I think it was for one of his friends' birthdays or a birthday, but Ten Hag still wasn't happy about it, clubbing the night of the derby. For both them games, what punishment did Rashford really get? There wasn't really anything. There's ill discipline behind the scenes at Manchester United. There is issues there, and the club needs to be run better. I still think Marcus Rashford can be a very good player. I think on his day, he can be extremely impactful. And there's a reason why fans were happy when he got that contract last year. There's a reason why fans were, some fans on the fans forum were saying he was, getting same kind of output as Mbappe. He has had good spells for United, but he's also had really inconsistent spells and poor spells. But the fact of the matter is, Man United are probably the only club in the world that had put up with the constant inconsistencies for the amount of money that we're paying for him and still play him week in, week out. And also, he is an academy graduate at Manchester United, so he probably gets a little bit more leniency there. Should that be the case or not? Get in the comments down below. And he knows Manchester United inside out, Marcus Rashford. He's a Man United fan. He's from Wythenshawe, born to play in red and white, born to fight. This is his home. This is his club. So if I was Marcus Rashford, I would also want to stay here. I would also want to stay at Manchester United. I'd also want to play my best football for the club I love. But Rashford himself needs to do some searching inside himself as to why he's not able to get that out of him right now, why he's not able to play his best football. Is it because the front three isn't suited to the way he plays? Is it because he needs a number 9 that's going to draw players away from him to give him more space? Is it because he needs an overlapping fullback in Luke Shaw? Is it because he's simply just not doing the right things himself? Does he need to look himself in the mirror? And I also think the club need to look at how are we not getting the best out of Rashford? What is happening behind the scenes that we can do better to get the best out of not only Rashford but other players? Is the discipline in the squad? Is there a positive environment? Have we got the best attacking coaches that we can get in? Are we doing the right things in training? There's so many different elements to it, so many. And I think for Rashford, it's not just Rashford's crap, get rid of him. Rashford's rubbish, get rid of him. No, Rashford can be a very good player on his day. Why aren't we getting the best out of him? Why is he not getting the best out of himself? Is it the right thing to him to stay at Manchester United? Does he need a different environment? But at the end of the day, Rashford's on a big, long contract. He only just signed it last year. He holds all the cards. If he wants to stay at Manchester United, that's what will happen. And I don't think there'll be many clubs queuing up to pay 350 grand a week for the current form he's in at the minute. So I think Rashford will stay at Man United, and it's up to Man United and Rashford to get the best out of him. And because if he stays, we need the best version of him. How do we do that? Does he come out of the team for a while? What do we change to the way we're playing? What do we do? And that's not for me to decide. We can all have our opinions on it. You can have your opinions on it. But the club need to have a serious look at it. And I know a lot of you guys would want to sell him. If I'm going to be honest, if someone came in with a big transfer fee for Rashford, more than 70 million, I would be open to selling him as well. But he's not going to get sold because I don't think anyone's going to pay, and Rashford wants to stay. And if he is staying, we need to work out how do we get the best out of him, because that's all I want. I want the best out of him, and I want what's best for Manchester United at the end of the day. And why is he inconsistent? Why does he have one season where he's firing? Why does he have one season where he's really poor? These are questions that United need to get to the bottom of. Last super chat's in. Maradona says we shouldn't champion on his day players. I agree. That's why I said we need to get the best out of him on a consistent level. And if that can't happen, alternative options need to be looked at. Again, we need consistency. Rashford and others and on his day players should go. Exactly, when you're getting paid 350 grand a week, you can't be an on your day sort of player. You need to be consistently performing. You're in the bracket of the Salahs, the De Bruynes, the Haalands. You've got to live up to that level, and Rashford's nowhere near it. I'm in agreement with you. Like, if he can't reach the levels, then we should be looking at other clubs that are willing to come in for him. But there won't be many, considering the performances he's been putting in this season, that want to pay what Manchester United would pay. Maybe there would be a PSG or something, but it's whether Rashford would want to go. We've just put him on a new contract. So it's not as simple as, right, he's up for sale, sell him. The player has to also agree. And if we can't do that, we've got to come to the best solution. And the best solution is trying to get the best out of him while we have him. SK says, cynical of me, but of course it's a gravy train. But Rashford, if he means it, he just needs to show it. He has weaknesses to fix. The fans love him. Just show he loves us. Again, that's what you're asking for. Bare minimum. Show that you love the fans. Show the effort. Go and put a few tackles in. Trap back. Like, that's what fans want to see first and foremost. Showtime Twin says, exactly, the club has always been the problem. Well said, Beth. Thank you for that. And look, everyone, thank you for getting involved in the chat. I know a lot of you guys would have disagreed with a few of the points I've made. Hopefully a lot of you would have understood where I was coming from, and you will have learnt some things as well today about where I've come from on a lot of the points I made. I know a lot of the points were unpopular, but I wanted to give a balanced argument, and I feel like we did that. And these are conversations that we need to be having, because Rashford's future's up in the air in the summer, but I think he will stay. But Sancho, for me, is a big, big decision. And transfer window is open next month. Next month. There's only a few games left of this season. Sancho, a decision on Sancho is going to need to be made. And I think it's good to talk about it, because it's something that can impact Man United. We could get a bigger fee for him because of what he's done at Dortmund. We also could let him go and lose a lot of money, and he could go and kill it elsewhere, and it could embarrass us. We could bring him back and it could end up being the wrong decision, and this loan is just we made the wrong decision and his price did go up. We brought him back and his price is back down. Decision has to be made, and it's got to be a well thought out decision. But ultimately, I'm happy that Jadon Sancho's got a smile on his face, playing his best football, because you want the best for all Manchester United players. And whether that is if he comes back to Manchester United or it adds more onto his price tag, then it's a good thing for Manchester United ultimately. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for getting your opinions in. It's all about the community, all about your opinions. Please hit a like on the video. Big decisions are right around the corner. Big decisions on the manager, big decisions on players for the summer. Transfer season is about to be upon us, and we have Ten Hag's press conference coming up this afternoon before the Palace. Obviously, bank holiday, so it's getting done early. I'm sure Ten Hag will be asked about Sancho. You won't want to miss it. Make sure you tune in to the press conference reaction a little bit later on. Have a lovely Thursday, everyone. Gonna love you and leave you, and I will see you on the next one.